We got breaking news out of the NFL where the Patriots have fired head coach Jerod Mayo after just one season. After just one season. Within hours of the end of it, the firing comes down. Robert Kraft handpicking the successor to Bill Belichick, who went 4-13 this season, securing the 4th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. That's the fewest games the Patriots have won in a season since 1992. Jerod Mayo out as head man in New England. Ryan Wilson, Emory Hunt here with reaction to this latest firing. We now have 4 head coaching openings confirmed. That's Chicago, New England, New York Jets, and the New Orleans Saints. We can get to all of that and the market that might be, but the timing of this one feels like it begs a question. Right after the game, Jerod Mayo handed his walking papers. Ryan, what do you take away from that timing?
I don't think Jerod Mayo had taken off his team-issued clothes by the time they let him know that he was no longer needed. And you said that this has probably been coming more than the last 15 minutes, maybe the last month or so. We don't know. But I'll just say this. Did they have a good season? No. By any measure. The only successful part of it was Christian Gonzalez, Keon Waite, and then, of course, Drake May, their rookie quarterback. But this is not Jerod Mayo's fault. He did not put this team together. This is Bill Belichick's team, and a team that, after they lost Tom Brady, was not very good. And you can go look at their draft record the last 3 or 4 years, and you'll have the answers to the question as to why this team won as few games as they did. So you put this team together. You hired Jerod Mayo, who has a history playing for the Patriots when they were successful, and then you get mad at him when he can't win games with the same dudes you were losing games with previously. So, look, you can question the in-game decision-making, the late-game decision-making, all that I understand, but this seems like he was set up to fail because if you can't win games with Bill Belichick, the greatest coach in NFL history, no one else on planet Earth has a chance with the same roster, and that's exactly what happened to Jerod Mayo.
It's funny because you hear people say, well, you draft a quarterback and he's supposed to make everybody around him better. But I always say, Allen Iverson said it best, I can't make you better. I am Allen Iverson, you are who you are. But when you think about what they were able to do, they nailed one quarterback, probably nailed 2 quarterbacks based on what we saw today. And the defense was playing really tough all throughout the season. We know what the clear issues were for the New England Patriots. Lack of playmakers, offensive line. Those were some chances you had to rectify that in this upcoming draft with the capital and maybe in free agency. I think you owe it to a coach to at least give him 2 years to see his program filter itself out and see what they put out there. Exactly. Don't hire him. And maybe because you had a prior relationship with him, you felt comfortable of saying, okay, hey, man, we're going to get you this head coaching job for this 1 year, then we're going to let you go. Maybe that's behind the scenes. I'm speculating, but, man, it just feels wrong to bring in a guy and not let him see his program through.
It is what it is, and it is an opening in New England now, and let's go that direction next. Assess this opening. Drake May, we saw some. We didn't see everything. Things pointing forward. They feel like they have their quarterback of the future there in New England. Much has been made about Chicago maybe being the best opening because of the quarterback there. How do you grade out New England as an opportunity for a head coach?
Listen, you have a quarterback potentially. You have a good foundation on defense. We know that to be a fact. You have a second quarterback in Joe Milton that could be a solid backup for your starting quarterback. And you have a high pick with currency. So you have a lot going for you. This is a good spot.
And the most cap space in the NFL a season from now. They could go buy some help.
Exactly. So you have a good situation here. I think it's a very good spot, a good opportunity for a coach to come in and make something happen. I would hate to see this broken up for Drake May because do you keep Alex Van Pelt, who worked well with Drake May, and you saw him move the ball forward with this quarterback, with 2 quarterbacks, and keep bringing it up because Alex Van Pelt had a hand in what we saw from Drake May and what we saw from that offense despite having that lack of playmakers.
They had pick 4. They had pick 37. Had they lost this game, I wonder if Jerod Mayo keeps his job if they lose this game. It feels like the Lovie Smith situation on some degree, but I think your larger point is one, this probably was a long time coming, but had they maintained that first-round pick, first overall pick, then you trade down, you get a ton more picks. Joe, you talked about the salary cap space that they have. They're going to have to get an offensive lineman at 4. They're going to be out of the Travis Hunter race by that point. And then you have to get the head coaching right. We just talked about this with the Chicago Bears. You have to get this right. And, again, I'll just echo, unless there's something we don't know behind the scenes about Jerod Mayo's relationship with Robert Kraft, and you mentioned they've been buddies for a while. Zach Taylor won 2 games what felt like 5 or 6 years in a row before they got who? Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Now, the offensive line's been an issue. The defense has been an issue. But this just feels like an extremely short leash. And you're setting the franchise back now another year because you have not built anything this year, and now you're going to blow it all up and start over.
The low-hanging fruit here is obviously Mike Vrabel, who is one of the most storied members of those dynasty years and a leader in that room before what could be a head coach in that room. Is this make the most sense? Does the timing almost point you this direction? Someone who's had a year to sit and watch. We knew he was going to get another bite at the apple, whether it be here or elsewhere. Or do you look at it and say, we just tried the former Patriot thing? Like, are you trying to redefine the Patriot way in a futile manner in your eyes if you do go towards Mike Vrabel? Or is this something completely different in your eyes, Ryan, than Jerod Mayo was?
No, you said it earlier. Mike Vrabel's a leader of men. He got the most out of that Tennessee Titan team. It never was considered sexy. It wasn't like watching Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan develop offensive plays, but those guys played hard for them. They won divisions, and they competed each and every week. And the other thing, Emory, is you can stick it to the Jets. They just interviewed Mike Vrabel, and they have a history of sticking it to one another. Bill Belichick resigned on a napkin a few years ago. The Patriots let the Steelers draft up to take the offensive lineman that the Jets wanted, so it goes back and forth. I wonder if this will encourage Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, to maybe move a little quicker on a coach that now might be suddenly of great interest to the Patriots.
It's fascinating because when you think about this opening in Mike Vrabel, what I would ask potential coaching candidates, and we know everyone is going to lie, but what was your thoughts? What was your scouting report on Drake May? Because you can't come into the situation and then use the, I don't have my guy at quarterback and try to use that to buy time. You have to buy in on what we currently have. Can you make those guys win? I do like the Mike Vrabel approach because he is a football coach. He's not a play caller. He's not trying to call the defense or an offense. He wants to coach the team. And that's what a lot of these football teams need. Stop going for the offensive or defensive genius. Get a guy that's a football coach.
And he can manage a group.
And delegate to your coordinators.
Absolutely.
That would be Vrabel as the head coach, maybe Josh McDaniels as the OC.
Run it back.
Has Brady turned the retirement papers in just yet? Be still my heart. What we do know,
Romeo Cornell's available.
It is a fourth opening in the head coaching ranks here in the NFL with the latest firing, Jerod Mayo, immediately after the season in New England. They don't stand for failure for too long. That dynasty, it bought you some time. The time to win is now, and it will be a different head coach tasked with that following one of the most futile seasons in franchise history. More reaction coming on the heels of this firing. NFL insider Jonathan Jones in with the latest and how this firing came to pass. That's next on CBS Sports HQ.
Jerod, what would you say to fans that are upset that today's win prevented you guys from getting the #1 overall pick?
Look, anytime we step foot, and I've said this over the past couple of weeks, as a player, as a coach, we always want to go out there and win.
Jerod, you mentioned a couple of times this year that you guys knew you were going to take some lumps this year. You knew this was a multi-year process. Do you expect to be back next year? Do you feel like you deserve to be back next year?
For me, it's all about just this game. You know, to go back to the start, it's all about this game, and we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Well, tomorrow never came. That was shortly after Jerod Mayo secured a win in Week 18 for the New England Patriots. Shortly after that, the Patriots firing Jerod Mayo as their head coach. The firing comes after just one season. Robert Kraft's hand-picked successor to Bill Belichick went 4-13 this year, and with the win in Week 18, moving to the 4th overall pick in the 2025 draft. For more, we say hello to CBS lead NFL insider Jonathan Jones. JJ with the latest here on this 4th opening, many to come, or more to come perhaps, as we move forward. But we are focused here on New England and the timing of this all. We just heard a man at a podium talking about dealing with this in the future being Monday. We never get to that day. What if the timing is indicative of when this decision was made for New England?
Well, what of the timing? I mean, certainly there's a lengthy statement from Robert Kraft that was put out very shortly after the conclusion of the game, very shortly after Jerod Mayo was talking about, we'll get to that tomorrow. So clearly that was composed well before. And so this was clearly something that had been on the mind of Robert Kraft, perhaps the minds of the Krafts, when you consider Robert Kraft and his son Jonathan at the helm there. And obviously this was not a season that they anticipated. They knew that they had a bottom 5, bottom 3 roster in the NFL because of the draft misses and the free agency misses over the last couple of years. But the way in which they were losing, right, embarrassing losses, 33 points at home there just a week ago, and then the miscues, missteps at the podium in talking about certain decisions that would be made or would not be made. Jerod Mayo at some time sort of appearing to have a lack of preparation is what one source had told me. And then, of course, if there were talks about a vision of the future between Jerod Mayo and the Krafts, perhaps they did not like what they were hearing from Mayo as it concerned potential staff changes. I'd reported over the weekend that if he were to make it to year 2, that there would have to be more experience, more veteran leadership that was added to the coaching staff. But ultimately, Robert Kraft deciding that the decisions Jerod Mayo had made led them to this point, and it wasn't going to get any better, and so making the move now on Mayo.
That vision of the future does include the 4th overall pick. It includes Drake May. It includes what will be a projected most cap space in the NFL this coming offseason. Could look a whole lot different there in New England moving forward. We know it will at the head man position as well. Eyes immediately go to Mike Vrabel, but what's the latest you're hearing from your sources in terms of what New England might be looking for in that leader of men?
Okay, so look, the top 2 candidates everywhere, it's going to be Mike Vrabel and it's going to be Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator. You either, and I reported this earlier today, you either really want Mike Vrabel and you're all in on him, or you're all in on Ben Johnson, and that can make itself become quite clear as time goes along. We know that Mike Vrabel, obviously a stalwart for those Super Bowl winning teams in that first part of the Patriots dynasty, has gone on and over the past year been a consultant with the Cleveland Browns after his time as head coach of the Tennessee Titans. There's no question, no doubt at all, the Patriots Hall of Famer is going to be interviewed for the New England Patriots job. A lot of people wondered why they didn't interview him last year. Well, the reason for that, of course, was that Jerod Mayo literally had in his contract that he was the coach in waiting. If Bill Belichick was fired, mutual parting of ways, they moved on, that he would ascend to that role. And so, Joe, what's going to be interesting now for the New England Patriots is the Krafts have not conducted a true head coach search in a quarter century. And so we're going to see, for the first time, a head coach search in New England. They're going to have to go through the full process, and certainly Vrabel will be involved. You would imagine that they will look into Ben Johnson, and we will see if Ben Johnson ultimately would accept a request for an interview from the New England Patriots. Also interesting, tonight is going to play a big role in that. If the Detroit Lions win against the Minnesota Vikings and they get the first round bye for the wild card, what you are going to see is Ben Johnson's going to be able to take interviews beginning on Wednesday virtually. And so that's when the interview would be taking place for him. You can go down the list of other top candidates, right? But those are the top 2. And it's going to be very interesting to see how the New England Patriots, for the first time in the Krafts ownership, really, truly, in earnest, take on a head coaching search.
It certainly feels like the Vrabel and Johnson dominoes will have to fall first before all others trickle down. But again, 4 head coaching openings, the latest being Jerod Mayo's firing in New England. Jonathan Jones, we appreciate you as always. Taking a look at that statement in part from Robert Kraft following this immediate firing of Jerod Mayo after the Week 18 victory. He says, quote, "For me personally, this was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. I've known Jerod for 17 years. Unfortunately, the trajectory of our team's performances throughout the season did not ascend as I had hoped. I've given much thought and consideration as to what actions I can take to expedite our return to championship contention and determined this move was the best option at this time," end quote.